I love how Suarez kind of resurrected him too. Like somehow Suarez getting in his face, he just bounces right back up and he's ready to talk to him.
Yeah, it was really funny, but I mean, yeah, it's I think it is a card if you ask me that. Yeah, you push him into the
Fair.
net like that, and you kind of everybody was upset that he was saving so many shots, and that's like then you score on him, and then you're like, I don't know, we finally get to talk to him a little bit.
Welcome back to the Player Manager Podcast. I'm Zealand, noted football manager expert and YouTuber, and that is Julian Gressel of Inter Miami. Julian, how you doing, man?
It's been a long time. A lot has happened. But hey, you also put out a new video about a new hitting grounds video, right? That's what the series is called.
Yeah, no, I
Yes,
appreciate your ability to change the subject, but
yes,
yes, no,
yes.
I
About
did.
the what was it about the Bruno's Magpies from Gibraltar?
Yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah,
I have this video series where we go to cool football stories around the world. We went to Faroe Islands to watch the first team that made the conference league ever. And there was a team that was basically founded in a pub, kind of a restaurant 10
yeah.
years ago that was playing at Copenhagen in Europe. In they'd covered all of that ground in 10 years. So we wanted to see what was up, and it was a wild experience, and the response to the video has been fantastic, which we've really appreciated. But I mean, the club founder, he's like 32. He's basically our age, and so it's just
That's
wild to
amazing.
interact with somebody. He was the bartender at the restaurant, and he just came up with the idea to found the club, because he tried out for a couple of other clubs and they wouldn't let him on. He said it was too political. He was a left back, and then, well, our manager's a left back, so we can't bring you in. And so he made his own team, and then he became better than all of them, and they played at Copenhagen, whose stadium, by the way, is larger than the entire population of Gibraltar. So it is a pure
Wow,
David and Goliath story.
wow, that's
Yeah,
cool. That's
they did
amazing.
pretty well.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
a story. That's
I
awesome.
wonder I wonder how many people listening to this knew that Gibraltar even had a league. They've got a full league. Got a nice retirement option for you. You can go play in Gibraltar for a year or two if you want to.
Eh, I don't know. I think I'll be okay somewhere else. But where are you going next? Any plans?
We have a big idea board that has everything on it from Lesotho to like Tahiti, just all these
Okay.
crazy stories. Because you think about it, if you're sitting there and you're chronically addicted to things like Instagram and Twitter, and your entire feed is just, cool football stories, whatever it is. Oh, this pitch was waterlogged. This team got suspended from this. Well, when we see those, when I say we, my brother and I, because he does the videography for them, we just go, oh, that's cool. And we just put it on the board.
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe we'll be able to go and actually see that someday.
Well, that's great. All right, listeners, give us some ideas where you should go. We need some more. I guess some more stuff for the board.
Some more stuff for the board. I'm thinking, if I had to guess right now, the most likely one would be Montserrat, which is the smallest national
Okay.
team in the world. They
Never heard of
represent,
that.
exactly. They're not the worst. They actually do pretty well, but they represent an island in the Caribbean of 4,995 people. Less than 5,000 people make up this
Wow.
nation. Yeah. There was a whole volcano eruption that made a bunch of people move, and so it's a whole it's interesting, but
Okay.
they play some of their home matches in Montserrat, and I think it would be cool to go. I'm not locking that in, but
It's
that
up
might be
there.
the next one that we do.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is time for us to move into to the rest of the show, and we're gonna have to talk about the playoffs, and it's gonna suck. But first, we got to talk about the
Really?
most important thing that happened. Which how was your daughter's princess party? Because this looked awesome. Honestly, I was jealous. How'd it go?
Well, on a personal level, it's been actually a really really good couple of weeks. Yes, we had the princess birthday party. It was very good. It was Cinderella theme. She was Cinderella. Cinderella made an appearance as well. Yes, it was magical. She loved it, and that's really all that matters, right? My daughter loved it, and it was a really, really good time. And then we also, after the season ended, unfortunately, which we'll talk about, but we also got to spend a couple days at, Mickey's home here at Disney. So we drove up to Orlando, went to Disneyland or Disney World for a couple days, 2 days, and a really, really short notice trip, but try to make the most of it when you have some time off and get some extra days with the family.
No, it sounds like it was kind of engineered almost to clear the head after a really long season, tough loss, and then you're just able to go off and take a vacation for a couple of days. What was the best thing that you did at Disney World?
The best thing that I did at Disney World, that is a really
Not the daughters or anything. Like, what was the best thing that you were able to do at Disney World?
yeah. I had a beer in Germany. So
How
so
did it compare? How did
yes. So Epcot, right? In
yeah.
Epcot, it's around the world for anybody who hasn't been there. So there's different countries basically, and you go in a big loop around the lake, and there's a lot of different countries, and Germany's one of them. And I was able to have a pretzel, a really good warm big pretzel,
Oh,
and a
all
nice
right.
beer that actually tasted really really good as well, in Germany. And that is something I didn't plan for this off season, but I got to do it.
You try to speak German to the staff in the Germany
Well,
section.
they're all from Germany.
Oh,
That's
that's how
that's
they
the
do it.
that's the it was incredible to me. All the different countries, that is where the people are from. Like in France, they're from France. Like it's all French people. In Germany, there was only like Germans like working there. It's like an exchange program they do while they study here as students, or I don't know how Disney does it, but it's really really authentic in that way, and it makes it really cool.
No, I honestly, I went there on a field trip because I, of course, grew up in Tampa, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Disney World as well. And I didn't even remember that. I just remember thinking the tacos in Mexico were subpar. That was my takeaway from Epcot. But I'm glad that Germany
Yeah.
wasn't letting people down in the same way. I had a beer in Germany. I
Yeah.
never thought about the fact that Epcot's appeal is definitely based off of tourists come in from around the world and then just go to their country at
Yes,
Epcot.
yes. Well, for us, it was Frozen. That was our appeal
Oh, well,
because
I mean,
that's where the
obviously.
Frozen Elsa is, and yes, so that's why we went there to Norway. They're in Norway. Yes.
Oh. Oh, right. Yes. Famous Norwegians and their talking reindeer. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was I'm jealous of your beer in Germany. And we have other fun stuff to talk about on the show today, not just the ethnicity of Disney employees. We also have the US national team under Mauricio Pochettino playing its most meaningful matches since he took charge. We've got San Marino, we might be able to touch on a little bit later, that managed to pull off the miracle on grass, as it's been referred to, and some big news out of Inter Miami that doesn't have to do with the playoffs. Of course, it has to do with the manager. But first, we have to talk about the actual playoff series, the upset, Atlanta United and Dax McCarty, a friend of the podcast, finding a way to stun you guys in what was, by anybody's measure, a riveting series that obviously, based off of kind of coaching decisions, you weren't as big a part of as you had been for the rest of the season. But what was the atmosphere like going into that last game, and how did that all play out?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't play out the way we wanted it to. I can get say that much, but the atmosphere was there was a certain tension, like it was a do or die game, and we felt that, and but it wasn't like to the point where we really felt like it really like stopped us from having a good performance. I think it was still loose. It was still a good week of training before, and we were still able to prepare well. And we knew that if we had, I think, played our game and limit their chances in a way, put away our chances, then we could move on and win the game. And that's something that obviously didn't happen. The game played out a little bit differently than I think what we wanted it to. And ultimately, yeah, unfortunate ending for us to lose.
I'm always fascinated when I hear stuff like that. When you say the game didn't play out the way that you wanted it to, what tactically started happening where, like, when you're watching that game and you're going, oh, that's not quite the pattern of play that we wanted to see? Were they just, classic gunking it up and really packing it in and making it difficult?
Not so much. I think they were a little bit better at controlling the ball when they could, and then they asked some really really difficult questions of us in transition. And they made it really really hard whenever we lost the ball, as you can see on the goal, for example, the second goal, I believe. So in general, they had a lot of counterattacks and a lot of space to run into, which was a bit too much, I thought, from what we had wanted, because we didn't want it to be an open game. Like we didn't wanted this this ping pong battle, like where you go back and forth, and we wanted to be in control, move the ball, and create chances, finish chances, and not give them the opportunity to counter and really have that much space in front of them. And that's something that we, yeah, couldn't really do. And or well, it's not like it happened all the time, but if when it happened, it was always dangerous, and it felt like there was always like this. They were really, really good in transition in that game, and that really causes a lot of trouble, I thought.
At what point in the game then did you like they're countering well? Obviously, they're able to score a couple of goals. At what point in the game did that fear set in? Right? There's always a point in upsets, particularly big upsets. I got to watch it firsthand. If you follow American college basketball, as somebody went to the University of Virginia, there was a point in the second half when Virginia lost to UMBC in the tournament that where you could see it in the eyes of the players on the team where you're like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
this upset isn't nearly as big as that. Atlanta United's a perfectly capable team. Weirdly enough, you guys only were able to beat, once all year, and it was game one of this series. At what point did that feeling kind of hit in this game?
Well, for me, there were warning signs before, and I, like you said before, I think I had a unique perspective, kind of not being part of it on the field, and I was able to kind of view the game a little bit from a different angle in that sense. So there was, obviously they scored the 2-1 where they go up and we're wide open on that goal, and leading into the half, we were very similar, trying to chase the game, like trying to get after them and leaving us exposed in the back. And there was a whole 50, 45, 50 minutes left to play the game, and so we only needed one goal to tie it up. And then, obviously we have the players to change games in 2 minutes like we've done before in the season. So it's not like we needed to really, try and really go and win it in the 45th minute. And I felt like it got to a point where, yeah, we were at that desperation mode a little bit too early. And there was a counterattack again, like 50th minute, just after the half, where we're like, man, we're so open in a sense, and those situations certainly proved or showed me that we were, yeah, just a little bit too open in that way, and just not really buttoned up, and that's certainly, yeah, it was just a tough moment, or tough to kind of see from the outside, because I feel like I also kind of could have given a little bit of that balance, right, and that experience, but at the same time, those are decisions that are being made, that I didn't really agree with, and that I wanted to be part of it on the field, and but at the same time, you have to accept them, and you have to try and do everything possible to help the team.
Of course, you guys create a bunch of chances. Brad Guzan makes some tremendous
Yeah,
saves. It was kind of the story of this entire 3 game series. But then eventually you do tie it up with, Messi's best attribute, his heading, obviously. And that's where he flies in, equalizes the game. There's the whole scuffle in the goal. I don't know if you got a good look at that, but that became one of the huge talking points after the match.
yeah.
Actually, before moving on from that, is that a card? I mean, now like the game's over, right? But someone, dude, like somebody just shoving Guzan into the net. It was funny, but it
I
was. I don't
mean,
know if I'd ever seen that before.
I think it was hilarious. The way it looked, and the way it, I mean, the way he was like caught in there, and then Suarez coming up and yelling at him, and
I
it
love
was
how
it was
Suarez kind of resurrected him too. Like somehow Suarez getting in his face, he just bounces right back up, and he's ready to talk to him.
Yeah, it was really funny, but I mean, yeah, I think it is a card, if you ask me that. Yeah, you push him into the
Fair.
net like that, and you kind of, everybody was upset that he was saving so many shots, and that's like, then you score on him, and then you're like, I don't know, you finally get to talk to him a little bit, and I mean, he did have a great series, got to give it to Brad, and um, he saved it for them. Simple as that. We were not able to score enough goals, and in large part because of him, and that's something, that's a big reason why I think they moved on, and we didn't. And in a different, I don't know, different setting, different series, we might win 2 games, I don't know, 6-2, 5-2, whatever, and that's that. But this is the MLS playoffs, and anything can happen, as you can see in the Eastern Conference in general. But certainly, unexpected things can happen, and unfortunately, it did.
Yeah, well, the top three seeds are out now in the MLS playoffs. Cincinnati's out. Columbus was out before. We were talking about that on the last podcast before game three of this series. But I loved the intensity of this game three. Then the Brad Guzan and the shouting and Luis Suarez and Messi. And everybody was getting in everybody's face. And it reached this fever pitch. And then I mean, I'm sure your perspective of this goal is completely different. But even my dad, who does not really watch soccer, he's been learning the game, right? He's watching this game.
Mm.
And there was just a feeling, my feeling about the winning goal for Atlanta.
Over the head where it's taken here by Atlanta again. Amador works this ball in, and the shot is in.
It was just like a letdown. It was like an excuse me type of goal where it felt that, given the intensity of the game, it almost felt out of place. Like it almost felt dirty. And I'm not saying that Atlanta scoring the goal was dirty, because I'm a believer in the play to the whistle general idea behind everything. For those that
Yeah.
didn't see the goal, there's a player for Inter Miami who's down with an injury kind of in the edge of the box, but he goes down while Atlanta's getting into the attack. He just kind of goes over. It looked like a cramp, whatever. And Atlanta United keeps going, and you guys kind of didn't, at least not enough, and lost a runner on the back post. What was your takeaway from that goal? Because that ended up being the defining moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And ultimately, I think it kind of defined, or kind of is an example of why I think we lost the series. I think I said it after game two, maybe not on the podcast, but to some people, I saw a picture of Atlanta United celebrating that win in the locker room, and you could see on their faces of what it meant to them, and then how much just one win. It's not like even they won the series, and that's at that moment even meant to them, and how much they were fighting for that, and how much they're fighting together, and that's what's required in the playoffs. And then those or that picture kind of was symbolizing me of like, hey, this team is dangerous. If you have that type of belief, that type of togetherness, and that type of fight and grit for each other, that anything can happen. And that in that instance where that goal happens, the 3-2, I felt like we didn't quite have that, and we didn't quite have that, like you said, play to the whistle, or continue to play through even when there's a guy down. Like, we're all looking at the ref to try and stop the play, and looking to them to try and get out of, like, stop. And I don't think we would have stopped, or I would have stopped if we were in the attacking half in that moment, and the guy just lays down, and whatever injury was, or cramp it was. So I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it's a little bit symbolic of ultimately why we didn't move on, unfortunately. And that's something that, again, I think is unique to MLS, and these MLS Cup playoffs, where teams like Atlanta United that find this belief, they sneak into the playoffs, they find a way to get behind the head coach that is an interim coach, that they sell their DPs, they don't have any big stars on their team. Like, it's all these things that you wouldn't expect out of a group like that finds a way together, that then finds a way to move on to a series like that, and completes arguably the biggest upset in MLS Cup history. So they had that fight, that grit, that doing everything possible of what it takes to the last second, the last inch of the field, like that type of mentality. And ultimately, in that moment, we certainly didn't have it, and that's something I think, we need to look ourselves in the mirror, and say that, without hesitation. But um, yeah, so if we had maybe had a little bit more of that, maybe the outcome would have been different. But at the same time, credit to Atlanta United, and how they dealt with that, and how they were able to find that type of spirit.
Is that you talk about the difference between the celebration and the locker room, right? And I feel like that might have something to do with, you guys were supposed to win, right? I feel like winning game one in this series at the time would have just felt like, well,
Yeah,
that was the normal day at the office.
yeah.
Like that was what we were supposed to do. And even, going into game three, going, well, like, we're supposed to win. If we don't win, then that's when something really emotional and dramatic has happened. How do you get that fire when you're the team? I mean, you guys you had more points than any other team in the history of MLS this season. How do you get that fire up for a first round match?
Yeah, it's you talk about that mentality, and it's definitely there. Like from the first moment on, with the type of players we have, obviously Leo leading the way there, Luis, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba. Like those types of players are used to winning everything. It doesn't matter if it's soccer, tennis in practice, or if it's a game, in MLS or in the
Yeah.
playoffs, certainly. So whenever you don't win, is like you said, is when it's tougher. So whenever you do win, it's not as like as joyous or like exhilarating as Atlanta United did, where they were celebrating. I think I saw it on Brad Guzan's Instagram for people who want to check it out, of what it looked like. But that is something, yeah, that just like it was going on all season almost for us. Like it was expected of us to win every single game, and even after ties, sometimes we were. It wasn't a good mood in the locker room, and there was an expectation to achieve more, which is okay, in my opinion, and it is good to have that type of expectation. But at the same time, I think you have to find ways, or you have to really enjoy the good moments too, when you do win and stuff, and to really have that fire and to have that feeling of, okay, this is what we're working for. This is why we are doing what we're doing, because we want to have that joy together and that fight together. And um, and that's something that is difficult to just turn on and off. Like it's something that you have to get used to, and you have to really find throughout the season. But yeah, it's a challenge every week, and it was a challenge throughout the year. And unfortunately, we weren't able to dip into that type of pool of what it would mean to us to win this series. So we're hoping, or we weren't able to kind of yeah, get it across the line in that sense.
I mean, what's the locker room like after that? Because if I were, you're in a particularly tough position because as somebody that rode the bench a lot my entire life, I'm very familiar with the feeling of sitting there and going, man, I really feel like I could have done something in this game. In my case, I was almost always wrong. In your case, there's a compelling argument that you might have been able to do that. And then you've got that on top of the fact that this magical run this amazing team has had just came crashing down out of nowhere. And a lot of people are going to be talking about it. So, what was that whole experience like, kind of the final whistle onward?
It was like almost a disbelief. I think disbelief, disappointment. A lot of guys being quiet, a lot of guys being upset, obviously. Guys coming off the field right away into the locker room. I try to at least go up to the fans and just, say thank you. There's a couple other teammates, and then we went to the locker room, and yeah, everybody was, yeah, in disbelief. I think it was really quiet for a really long time. Some guys would mumble some stuff. Some guys, would cry. Some guys, would just kind of sit there staring into the ceiling or the floor and nothing really. And um, then eventually you just kind of, yeah, get on with it. You shower, and you get changed, and you go and see your family, and eat something, maybe not, and just go home. It's like there's nothing really I can explain. Like it's just an emptiness, I think that's how we felt, about like a disbelief of what had happened, that we couldn't live up to obviously the favorite role that we had, and couldn't get it done at home against a team that we had struggled against all season, that we're clearly better than, that we have, I don't know how many points more during the season. But it was certainly, yeah, just this disbelief, and this, yeah, this emptiness, like I said.
Did Tata say anything?
No, nobody spoke, and it was, yeah, like I said, really quiet. Nobody said anything. Everybody dealt with it in their own way, which is almost better in those moments. I think everybody has different way. Some people are angry, some people are sad, some people are just quiet, within themselves. And everybody's different, and that's something, I think, which is healthy, to kind of just give everybody space, and however much they need. We did have some conversations towards the end of that, after I got showered with part of the coaching staff and part of the team admin staff, of what the next weeks are going to look like. Um, hence why we had so long off, because there's a mandatory 1 week off, and then now we've been in for the last couple days to kind of finish out everything, get a couple of training sessions in, a couple of touches on the ball, but and then now we're doing exit physicals tomorrow, and then we're out of here. So that's it for this year. But so we had those little conversations, but nothing really major, nothing really. It's too close to the game where you feel too emotionally attached to it to really draw any good conclusions from it anyway. So we really just need space and really give everybody the freedom to process it on their terms.
That's fascinating to me. So, is there ever a moment that serves as some sort of like group therapy where at some point the whole team's sitting there and Tata's just going, well, that sucks. Like, is there ever a moment that it's ever kind of acknowledged, or you just eventually you have that week off and you come back and everybody's like, there's just kind of the look of acknowledgement in everybody's eyes, but nobody ever
Yeah.
talks about it.
Yeah, I mean, we went to Disney, like I said, and I didn't see anybody for quite some time, and then when we got back in, it's just really about acknowledging it or not acknowledging it. Yeah, then maybe you've drawn some conclusions from it. You can talk to guys about it, and everything is kind of not as emotional anymore, and that's really what it was about. And um, yeah, I mean, we lost the series for a reason. Didn't just happen out of coincidence, and I think that was my conclusion from it. So we certainly, yeah, have to change I guess, our mindset when it comes to these types of games again, because it didn't happen in the Leagues Cup for us. It didn't happen in the CONCACAF Champions League for us. It didn't happen in the MLS Cup playoffs for us. But for some reason, we were able to do it in the regular season on a consistent basis, and that is, a learning process the team has to go through and figure out how we can change that moving forward.
I mean, you're already started to get into kind of where I wanted to leave this game, which is basically you guys had more points than any team ever in MLS history. You won, the supporters shield, and as an outsider and somebody that's had this wonderful window into the team all year through doing this podcast, will be remembered as the greatest MLS team that didn't win an
Yeah.
MLS Cup. So how do you look
Well,
back at a season like that?
let me ask you: was the season a failure in your eyes?
I think that it will always be viewed as a failure, but I think that it is possible, and this happens in other American sports where you have this playoff system, to view a season as remarkable and yet also a failure. I
Okay.
think when you look at the Patriots that went 19-0 and then lost the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
people will always remember that team was 19-0, that team was unbelievable, and they will always, like, you've been very careful to cushion throughout the course of these answers, like, hey, Atlanta beat us, like they won the game, they were able to go out there and do these things that allowed them to win. But if Atlanta United doesn't win MLS Cup, people will not remember the Atlanta United team from this
Yeah.
year. They'll
Yeah.
remember the Inter Miami team from this year. And in another one that comes to mind is the Golden State Warriors. They go 73-9, and then they lose to LeBron, who wins it for Cleveland, or I think that was the same year. And people will always remember that team's the one that, I mean, they had the better, they had the best regular season ever.
Yeah.
And so did you guys. And so I think that greatness can be remembered forever, even though it was a failure. Because, like, I mean, it has to be. Because if you're the best team in league history,
You got to win.
you got to
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not going to sting. There's no way to justify not winning it. But sometimes it just happens, clearly, because it's happened, in NFL, NBA, the team with the best regular season ever did not win the championship in the playoffs. There might actually be a mental, there's not, it's hard to get a large sample size of those sorts of incidents,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there might actually be some sort of mental, what we were talking about earlier, where it's just, you're not able to get that dog in you because you've just been better than everybody the
Yeah.
whole year. So why are you not going to be better than everybody again?
Yeah, no, yeah, I see that, and I understand it. Obviously, I have a different perspective because I'm kind of living it, and I've been living it for the whole year, and that's a very interesting way of looking at it from the outside. That's why I asked you.
I was
But
thinking it was a good question.
yeah, but honestly, for me, I can't think back. Like, yes, the outcome is a failure, right? And the outcome is not what we wanted, but it's not for me. Like, it sounds so like I don't know, professory or like nerdy in a way, but for me, it's not always about the outcome. It's about like almost like thinking back to any year that I've had. None of the seasons was a failure in my eyes. Like you draw something from those moments always. You just have to shift your perspective in a way. And for me, this year is the same. Like we were able to do things in the regular season nobody expected us to do in the regular season. Nobody expected us to go in the summer when, X, Y, and Z, obviously Leo and those guys were at the Copa America to go on a win 8 out of 9 games without him or without all these guys. And nobody expected us to do that. Nobody expected us to win the points record. Yeah, maybe the supporters shield, but not the points record. And kind of have that type of season where we were dominant, like we won it clear. And then all of a sudden, everybody expects us to win in the playoffs, and we can't. Like it's like this. These we talk about 2 different seasons, and that's exactly what it was essentially. Where, it is in my eyes not a complete failure. It is a way. Yeah, yes, like our producer Mike just putting the Giannis Antetokounmpo response to one of these questions that he got after I think they lost in the finals.
There's no failure in sports. Some days it's your turn, some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win.
Where it isn't a failure in my eyes. It's you learn and you get better. It doesn't just happen that you win all the time or that you win everything all the time. It's not just going to happen. You lose a lot more than you win. At least in my career, I don't know about Leo, Messi.
Definitely, I mean, definitely in mine.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it's just part of it. It's part of the sport. It's part of the game, and those things happen. They happen for a reason. And I think with a bit of time and understanding and perspective, you can look at it as, like you're saying, yes, a failure, but also a lot of things that went really well and that we did really right. I mean, to think back to 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago where Inter Miami was, obviously Leo Messi's arrival changed everything right at the club. But to now have the supporter shield, the points record, like you created the biggest brand, obviously in the US, but certainly in or top 10 maybe in the world with him there. Like it's just things that you transcend this club into new heights. And then that is something that an organization winning is something an organization has to learn as well. Not just, it's not just down to the 11 players on the field that do it. So there's ways that this club is getting better through these experiences.
I think it's really interesting, that sort of approach, because I obviously got my YouTube start making tutorials about Football Manager, like teaching people how to play the game. And I would always talk about like, okay, if you lose, you actually have something you can learn from that. I think this is also Sun Tzu as well, as you learn more from your defeats than your victories. In that when you win, it's a lot harder to identify what you need to change. But when you lose, it is way easier to figure out what caused that result. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, Inter Miami will live a lot longer than Julian Gressel's career or Lionel Messi's career. And like this club will exist for a lot longer, and this club will be, there'll be people coming in and out and all that stuff. And there's experiences that you go through and lessons that you pass on to players. For me, like I've learned so much throughout my whole career, and that's why I'm able to talk to younger guys and give them advice and tell them what it's like and not like. And, maybe I'm full of shit, maybe I'm not. But at the same time, it's certainly, there's lessons that we can learn from everything, and the club will take those lessons and will move into the right direction, down the line of how it, however they want to.
And there's more of a piece to this, which is after the game, obviously there's a lot of non-Americans on the team that are probably, and I run into this all the time talking about this stuff on stream, but not as used to the way that MLS and American sports kind of just do things a little differently. The one I saw was Jordi Alba. And so we had to bring this up, where they're talking about Well, I don't know if the playoff system kind of makes sense. And well, I think Jordi Alba's idea was take the top 4 teams from each conference and have a cup competition that way. So I'd be remiss if we didn't have a conversation about the best of 3 format and 9 of 16 teams getting in the first place. Do you like the way that MLS Cup is set up overall?
It's
I realize you're in a unique position, having just kind of been victimized by maybe the
yes,
worst.
no, exactly, and that's I think why Jordy said what he said, right? And I talk about being emotional after games and talking maybe with not that little perspective that you might have after a week off. Like it's something that honestly he's been saying for quite some time throughout the year. He's been like, why is this so big and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but you have to understand why MLS is doing it, and that's commercial reasons. The league needs to survive, and clubs need to bring in money, and home games are important. And the more games you have, the more money you bring in, and that's just how it is. And that's how this league is still, not established enough to really say, all right, we can take games away. So I certainly understand that side of it, and that's why my answer is simply it is what it is. Like I'm not making the decision. Yordi isn't making the decision. Like we have an opinion, but at the same time, the decision makers are making that decision based off of their what they think is absolutely best for this league. And the last 2 years, like that's how it was. Last year, I loved the format because we won.
Yeah.
This year, all of a sudden we didn't win, and it was not great. Like if we had won the series, maybe Yordi would have never said anything like that. So that's what I mean. Like it's those types of responses are always fueled by, I think, emotion a little bit. And I think if you look at it from a more topical view from an outsider, or not outsider's perspective, but more like a overall picture, then you kind of have to come to the conclusion to say it is what it is. And we are the best team, or we were the best team, I thought, with the most quality that we could have gone on to just beat Atlanta. Like it was just one game at the end of the day, and if that's, I don't know, if that's in the semifinal against, I don't know, Columbus, who was second in the East, which in Yordi's format, then we could have lost that game. Then maybe, we would have complained about why is there not just one game, one final, like, what I'm saying? So you kind of just got to take care of business the best way possible. And that didn't happen for us.
I'll put you in a position though. If you're king of the world, right? You make all the rules, no TV considerations, nobody cares, and you get to design how MLS Cup is awarded.
Oh
What
man.
would you choose? Obviously, we're separating this from reality entirely, but what would you put as the way to choose it?
Listen, I love these games. I love the playoffs. I love how it's unique in this world. And I love how MLS is just different from any other league. And that's why I think I would maybe not do a 3-game series, but I would certainly have a good amount of teams, maybe not 9 teams, but probably 6 or 7 teams make the playoffs in each conference. And then similarly, either seeded 1 through 12, where, there's a lot longer travels, or seeded East and West, and just have one-off games, because these games bring out stuff that is simply amazing. Like I love playoffs, and I love American sports, how it works that way. So I would want to keep those one-off games, those do or die games, because they're fun. They're fun to be a part of. They're fun for fans, and they just, I don't know, it's just always dramatic, and that's why, yeah, I think I would keep it. Maybe not the 3-game series, but certainly the do or die games.
I'd copy NFL format. 7 teams from each conference. If you win the conference, you get a bye in the first round, and then everybody else just kind of plays their way in on that bracket. I think rewarding teams that win the conference by giving them an extra round would probably be wise. And cutting it from 9 to 7 would make it so the majority miss the playoffs, and that
Yeah.
makes it feel a little more exclusive, because right now it's the majority. I had my answer prepared for that one. I didn't warn you.
Okay.
I was ready for that. But we move on now to news that is kind of just breaking. We're not breaking it on this podcast, but it is just coming out kind of right now, which is that, I mean, this is huge news, obviously, in your world.
Yeah, I've
That
known. I've known.
oh, okay. I mean, it's huge news for the rest of the world, and news that you're now able to talk about publicly, I guess.
Yep.
And that your coach, who's obviously coached you in multiple stops, Tata Martino, it seems very amicable, but he's kind of stepping away from Inter Miami. He's leaving, being fired with a smiley face at the end, whatever, wherever it lands in that. You said you'd known for a little while. What was your reaction when you heard that news? Because obviously you're talking about whether you view the season as a failure or not, and that kind of lands on the coach.
Yeah. Well, I've so to start with, I think I've heard some speculation going into the playoffs that no matter how these playoffs go, that there might be a change at the head coaching position. I think the reasons they are giving in terms of it being personal reasons for Tata is true. Um, I think that Tata has mentioned to me personally, where that is how I got my confirmation that we had a conversation. One, about my playing time in the playoffs, and
Right.
how that kind of turned out. I kind of had to ask him about that. And then two, yeah, just about in general how the season was going for me, and then it kind of led into those types of bigger picture conversations. And then I asked him at the end very straight up. I was like, "Are you going to be here next year?" And he told me no, that he wasn't, that he had some personal stuff that he needed to take care of, and that's why he had to step down from the job. And I believed him. I believe him to this point. I Like you said, I think I have a really good relationship with him. I'm obviously very grateful to him of how it all started in Atlanta for me. That is something I will forever be indebted to him. He gave a rookie out of college a chance to prove himself, and didn't have any bias against me or any other draft pick in a sense. And that is something I'm so thankful for him to basically lay the path for me to have this type of career here in MLS. And now to reunite again was special. It was special to me in Atlanta, in here, and it was special in Atlanta. It was also special here in Miami to kind of reunite and tackle this project of trying to win everything. Because that's what it was all about from the start, and that's what he made clear to me, that I'm being counted on in multiple different ways, and but we need to win everything. He said. I was like, okay, I'm on board. So, um, yeah, no, I was obviously a little bit sad, or still am sad, that he's leaving, because again, I have a good relationship with him. I've had a good relationship from the beginning, and um, he's a great coach. As you can see, how he managed us throughout this year was unbelievable. Especially in the summer where we had missed so many guys, and it was certainly, yeah, a good time together. And we'll see if it was the last, but certainly it looks like it for now. But you never know.
And how does that news percolate through the team? Do they? You obviously had this meeting with him, which makes complete sense when you kind of come back from everything. Is there? This is just a pure interest question: is how professional teams work here? Is there a team meeting where Tata's basically like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna leave," or is it just these individual meetings where everybody eventually just kind of finds out over a couple of days?
Yeah, like I said, I think the rumors were there, but then we had a team meeting scheduled, and we were, yeah, where it wasn't just the players, it was everybody, staff member, guys that were involved in travel, from the cook to dietitian to all the physios to the team admin, to everybody was in the room. And that's basically when he told us. I mean, it was leaked beforehand on social media, so we kind of obviously knew what it was about, and he had said that he wishes he would be the one to tell us first. But it is true. He gave his reasoning that I mentioned before, and then basically thanked everybody for their commitment, for their time, and that he's yes, it was a great time. It wasn't an extraordinary time because we ultimately failed to win MLS Cup, but we yeah, he mentioned that we propelled this club to bigger things. For when he arrived, the club wasn't in a good spot. That was a year and a half ago, and now it's in a much better position. So he's certainly excited about that and was happy about that. And again, thanked everybody for their commitment, and also laid a message for the future and said, hey, this is what it takes. Everything, it takes everything. It takes 100% from everybody to move this club in different spheres, and that's obviously big things are ahead in terms of the Club World Cup and all these types of opportunities that are happening next year. So there is things that everybody should sacrifice, and like, again, but most of it was about him, thanking everybody and saying how proud he was of what we'd achieved, and that he wishes everybody well.
And how did everybody react to that? I mean, what's the room like in that moment?
Similar. I mean, everybody kind of afterwards just went up to him and gave him a hug, like individually. It was, for me, my emotional state. I mean, everybody kind of takes it in differently, right? If you're a guy that didn't play at all this season and didn't really like him, you're probably like, oof, great, I get a new
Yeah.
chance, like, thank God, like this, this might be nice. But also, a guy like me who's obviously had a good relationship with him, I knew that it was coming, but also, it's not easy. Like, those are emotional. It's not like I was crying, but I was certainly sad, because you build a relationship with him, with the staff. You've known them for a long time. You've won together. Now that, we won our second trophy together. We won MLS Cup, and now the Supporters Shield, and you have memories, and these people will be part of your life forever. And that's why it's always sad when something like that happens, and when times together end, in that sense. So not easy news, but at the same time, I have enough time now to digest it and see what's coming up.
Yeah, and I mean, I love this. This is the half of the world that I live in, right? The speculation's gone crazy, obviously, with Inter Miami, with Supporters Shield winners, tons of talented players like Julian Gressel. The names are being thrown around, like Xavi and Javier Mascherano, who could come in and be the coach. Obviously, it's going to be somebody who knows Messi and gets along with him. They're not just going to go hire like some guy from another MLS
Jim
team.
Curtin.
That would
Yeah,
exactly. That would be a stunner.
Yeah.
Do you tune that stuff out, or are you paying attention to it every day, like, ooh, who might it be now?
No, it's obviously interesting. It's a big part. It's a big part of the game, and big part of a team. The coach is one of the most important people in the club, if not the most important, especially for the players. So I'll certainly pay close attention to it. I don't want to speculate on rumors, though. Like, that's, I read the names too, like you said, but we'll kind of
You can
just see
leave
what
that to me.
happens.
I
You'll text me. You'll text me.
I can do that.
But it's just something, we'll just see what happens. And the club will certainly have, a lot of things in mind about who they want to bring in. Like you mentioned, somebody that has experience, obviously, with Leo, and has a relationship with him. And then we'll just, we'll go from there, and we'll see.
And speaking of coaches' relationships with players, it is time for us to move into U.S. national team talk, because I think I've tortured you enough with discussions.
That
about
was a long section.
Well, hey, I know I included in this. A lot of people are interested in knowing all of the different kind of facets of that. And on behalf of everybody, I appreciate you, because I mean, I know some of that probably wasn't easy to talk about. I appreciate you being willing to talk about it.
Of course, it's not easy to talk about, but again, I've made this commitment here to be open and honest, and talk about things. Yes, maybe not 100% everything I can share, but or at certain times I can't talk about things, but at the same time, I want to paint a picture a little bit for the people on the outside, and that's why we do the podcast. Simple as that.
That's
so
true.
If you have questions, if you have comments, let us know. I'm happy to answer even more if there's any interesting ones coming in. We'll do it on the next episode. We'll go back, and I'll try and answer those as best as I can from whatever happened this year. If you have questions, like I said, just ask, and we'll try and dive in more.
And we do have a couple of good questions that we're going to get to at the end of this podcast, as well, as we always do. So thank you guys for submitting those. And I am definitely happy that Julian Gressel is contractually obligated to hang out with me like once a week. That's basically.
Did I ever sign anything? I don't know.
Don't tell him. Okay. What were we talking about? Yeah, the U.S. national team. Okay. And this is good happy time subject because the U.S. national team started kicking some ass against Jamaica. Now, it squeaked out a 1-0 win in the Nations League quarterfinal in Jamaica, which rather unbelievably equals Greg Berhalter's tally of road competitive
I
CONCACAF
saw that.
wins. Yeah, which honestly, people look at that stat and they go, how's that possible? It's hard to win on the road in CONCACAF. You're
Yeah.
playing on fields that have potholes in them and are surrounded by riot police and covered in
You
mud.
saw that field in Jamaica.
Oh
Like,
my God.
come on.
Jamaica's field. I don't know where they're just playing in some park somewhere. I don't know. It's like that every time we
It's
played. We
incredible.
lost the last time we played in Jamaica.
Yeah.
It is tough. So winning 1-0, people were freaking out. And I'm sitting there going, that's a good result. You go onto that field in that weird environment and you're able to get a win and get out of there. That's great. And they came home, and I don't know if you were able to actually watch the game, but they lit up. They played the boys were buzzing.
Yeah.
That was
I
a
watched.
great game.
Yeah, it was good, and I mean, I'm certain Pochettino was probably like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" when he was in Jamaica in the stadium and stuff. Like he's probably never seen anything like it.
Oh, they don't get that in Europe. They don't get that. In
No,
Europe.
and you get told stories and all those things. Like me too, when I was in the camp, and you like talk about it and stuff. But then all of a sudden, like it's a different beast. Like I've played in some of those stadiums in CONCACAF, and it's not easy. So
Mm.
certainly eye opener for him, and maybe he'll or he'll probably be better prepared next time. But yeah, 1-0 win on the road, really good, and then coming home and really, taking it to them in the first half, and then kind of chilling out a little bit in the second half, which is somewhat normal, I guess. Especially if you know that you have to go back to your club soon, and you kind of through already to the next round. So ultimately, really good performances, really good. Good. I thought step they took from the first camp to this one, where now it meant something, and you can see that things might be changing in the right direction.
Yeah, and they said as much after the match. The person that went farthest that I saw was Timothy Weah, who scored a fabulous goal
Yeah.
in this game, and he played. Honestly, Timothy Weah is one of those players that is really frustrating sometimes because you feel like 6 months out of the year he doesn't exist. He just kind of disappears. The other 6 months of the year you're watching him and you're like, man, this guy is really good. Like, where is he the rest of the time? And he had one of those games where he was outstanding. And he credited it with the coaching, with this kind of rejuvenating experience of having that new coaching staff come in and the freedom that had created. How do you translate that in terms of the impact Pochettino's had on the team? Because to me, that just says that these guys are fired up again. Like there's a new breath of air in there.
Yeah, and just from a player's perspective, it means a lot when a player speaks in the media about that so highly, and that means that things are going well. That guys are happy with how it's going. Guys are happy with how the change is going. I think Pochettino is happy with obviously the results have been going and how they've been doing in a sense, and you can see that the energy is a little bit different, and that him speaking like that in the media is a really, really good sign, in my opinion. So, and again, the performance was great. You see how Pulisic's playing great, and obviously club and country, and he's not missing a beat coming to the U.S. And you have Tanner Tessman who's playing a really, really good game, like first time really in the A
Good
lineup,
shout out. Yeah.
and those types of guys, and then you have the vets who are still there doing their job, like Matt Turner saving a penalty in Jamaica, to kind of doing his job, and Tim Ream, being the captain, kind of taking that pressure maybe away from Pulisic a little bit, to take that on where he doesn't have to wear the armband, and it's kind of just like go out and do your thing and play. And so it's certainly Ricardo Pepi scoring goals, like getting starts, and it's certainly something that is really, really positive, in a way where I'm excited for the matchup against Panama, and then the Nations League finals obviously next year.
Well, the Nations League's very quickly become like the premier CONCACAF competition because it feels like it's the one where every nation's able to send their A national team just the way that it budgets.
Yep.
And that's in March. So that is the next international window. That'll be really exciting. Mexico has squeaked in there. They were down 2 goals against Honduras after the first leg, but they won at home by enough to get through, and they'll be playing Canada. So it's going to be a couple of couple of good matches in Texas, I believe. They just always put them in Texas.
Yeah, I know. Always. Always. But no, it'd be good.
Oh,
It'd
LA?
be,
It's in LA.
oh,
SoFi
yeah.
Stadium. I got it. Our producer is telling us right now that
There we
it's
go.
in LA and SoFi Stadium. Like I was saying, it's always in LA, always in California.
Yeah, that same thing.
God.
It's no, it's
As an
I'm
East
excited
Coast
for it.
guy, same thing. Yeah.
Yes. I'm excited for it. Should be good. Should be good to see. And again, there's steps that you take, right? Steps towards the World Cup, which is the big thing, and that's what we want to do. And that's encouraging to see how it's going right now. And hopefully, you can take that by winning the Nations League in March.
Yeah, it'll be Nations League and then Gold Cup this coming summer. But we'll see what kind of team everybody's able to put together for that. And then those are the last competitive matches. It's amazing because it still feels so far away before that World Cup
Yeah.
in 2026. And then
It's
boom,
incredible.
it's here.
Yeah. Oh man,
We're
1.5
getting old.
years.
Yeah, I know we're getting old. I can't believe
Yeah.
it's already. I remember when they announced that it was going to be there. There is one other piece of Nations League news that we just had to talk about, which is San Marino. And we're going to glance across this San Marino very quickly because the worst national team in the world has
This is
been
your
promoted.
topic. I'm
This
gonna
is-
take a little nap after how much I've spoken.
The worst national team in the world managed to beat Liechtenstein. If you weren't keeping track of this, they beat them twice and they managed to win their Nations League group, which means they are promoted to Nations League C in Europe. And this is just this weird magical story that so many people have fallen in love with. If for some reason you didn't know it was happening, it did happen. It's awesome. And if you think that, Atlanta United was a big upset, this was beyond that. They'd never won a competitive match in their history until September of this year. And now they've won 2 and they're promoted.
On fire.
They're promoted into the same tier that Sweden's on right now. And they've earned the right to play in that level of matches. I don't know. It's really exciting. I mean, there's 35,000 people there. Happy for them because all they get is a bunch of people making fun of them for being the worst national team in the world, and they're clearly not that anymore. They have for the first time, if you're San Marinese, you can wave that flag and be like, we are better than somebody, and that somebody is Liechtenstein apparently, who is now going to occupy that bottom spot. I would imagine because they just lost to San Marino twice. Gibraltar is the other team in the group, but they basically drew every match. So that brings it home to our hidden grounds because we knew a couple guys on that team. They drew 3 of their 4 matches in the group, which is why they finished behind San Marino. But San Marino never beat them. And as a result, San Marino does have a chance to get to the World Cup via the playoff system because they won their Nations League group. A couple of things have to go their way, but they could end up in the playoffs. And we could end up with a much crazier sports story than we have right now. But this is my world. I had to give him a shout out on the podcast.
I love it.
It's time to get to your questions. We get to these every week. Thank you so much for sending them in on Instagram, for sending them in your YouTube comments. And we go first to Cahoon Quinn, who asks, how many times do you use a jersey? Is it 1 per game? And what's done with unique game-worn jerseys?
So I always have 2 jerseys per game, so 1 for each half. Usually I change it at halftime, and then they just get reused for the next games. If I don't trade them, they'll get reused. Some I take home, some I trade away. But yeah, unless there's something wrong with them, like I don't know, there's a tear in them or something, then I'll get a new one. But they're usually being reused on a weekly basis. That's why washing machines exist. You just wash them and then they'll be back in the lineup the next week. But
Is everybody doing that, or are people like Messi and Suarez rocking up with new jerseys every single game?
Well, Leo trades his jerseys every game.
That's fair enough.
Even sometimes multiple. So that's a bit different. But some guys take a lot of them more home, I think. If I don't know if they had a good game or an assist or goals or whatever, they kind of take it almost like as a game ball in the NFL. I want to say, but
so you're allowed to do that. You can just take it home, and they go, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a certain limit for us of how many we get for some players. Some players get an unlimited amount, but for me, I think there was 8 or 10 per year, and the rest you would be charged like a minimal amount. just because the club obviously has to buy them as well. So
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes, if you play 35 games and you need a new jersey each game and you're not
yeah,
Messi who's trading them away, I mean, that can add up to a lot of money over a whole roster.
yes, absolutely. So, but now at the end of the season, I actually just got mine this week when we were in. So they usually give them out to us at the end of the year. So I have a bunch of jerseys at home now, just sitting around. So I'm going to be sending you one, Zealand.
Yes, dude, that's gonna kill in the pickup soccer circuit in New York. I'm
Yes,
just gonna be rocking my game worn Gressel jersey. Can't wait.
that's it.
Maybe I'll be better at passing once I'm put that on. Be like some sort of like Mike situation. Our second question's from our producer Mike. It's actually cut the line, so be sure to get mad at him about that. He said Ronaldo's reportedly going to collab with Mr. Beast on YouTube.
I did 7 days on a deserted island, 7 days stranded on a raft, 7 days in an underground city, 7 days in an abandoned city. So,
Brother, you crazy, eh?
next question.
What's Messi's move after this?
Not
Start
with
his
us.
own YouTube channel, make his own video with Mr. Beast. I know. First of all, I can't believe Ronaldo overlooked this podcast. I agree. But
Yeah.
do you think Messi even knows or cares that Ronaldo has a YouTube channel? I feel like he doesn't. I
No.
don't know him, but
I don't think he does either. I think I think that's something where Ronaldo and Messi are so different that plays out in that way as well, where yeah, there's either Ronaldo fans or there's Messi fans. I happen to be appreciating both. Obviously, I'm a little bit more towards Leo, but he, yeah, it's just more out there in the public world than Leo is, and I think you can see that obviously in the amounts of press conferences and media appearances and all that type of stuff. Maybe he eventually will start his own YouTube channel when he's done playing, but for now, I certainly don't see it. It's not really who he is, I think. But I don't want to, completely rule it out because I'm not him.
that's fair. Have you ever? I feel like this is Ronaldo's very brand conscious. Have you ever seen Messi do any brand conscious sort of thing? Or is he just so I feel like he's so just focused on the football.
No, I see it. Yeah, I see it, but it's more subtle. It's not as in your face, I want to say, and it's calculated still. I mean, I think you have to know how many eyes there are on you, right?
True,
And
yeah.
what you do. So it's not just about doing whatever. I think it certainly knows what type of shoes he's wearing, when he's wearing them, and that type of stuff. And that he doesn't show brands, for example, that he doesn't align with in games. Like, I don't know, for example, if it's his socks, like he usually tapes it up quite well, or his underwear brand is never showing, like things like that, like it's that type of stuff that I think he's certainly really aware of. And when it comes to obviously promoting his own products, like the Moss drinks, for example, I remember there was a picture. What was it? The winning the supporters shield, and he's kind of holding the trophy and the drink at the same time. And I was like, was
Yeah.
that placed or not? But again, I don't know. So it's I think he's certainly aware of what's going on and how he can influence people, but is certainly in a more subtle, not so in your face type of way, which
Yeah,
I like much better.
that's fair. Well, I mean, but you are a YouTuber now, so you're kind of branching into the
Yes.
dark side.
I'm promoting this channel as much as I possibly can. So subscribe.
You heard the man. We'll see you next week.